The Aussie Open men's semifinals are fast approaching, and we couldn't have a better matchup, with Nadal and Berrettini promising an intense, passion-filled affair, then Tsitsipas and Medvedev adding yet another big matchup to their budding rivalry. I'll break down and preview both matchups before predicting who I think will be in Sunday morning's final here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today. Briefly looking at the head-to-head between Berrettini and Nadal, Rafa has the edge in each department from the previous meeting to the less time spent on court. Berrettini did face tougher opposition on paper than Rafa, so he'll take additional confidence from that. Rafa got through his opening few matches without too much trouble, but then was tested more against Hashanov, who took a set off of him, then Adrian Mannarino, who should have taken a set off of him. Then most recently he was pushed to the limit and fought past some physical ailments to outlast Denis Shapovalov in 5. I've been very impressed by how Rafa's played this tournament, being sharp in pretty much every aspect. The return has been solid, and even though he doesn't break all the time, he usually makes holding difficult for the server, which can have important implications down the line. Nadal's also done well to charge the net as soon as he has an opportunity, and with great success, averaging nearly 80% of net points won throughout the tournament. The most important weapon for Nadal, though, has been his serve, as he's made a conscious effort to go up and after it more on both the first and second. Not only has he upped the pace, but the placement has been phenomenal too. Rafa said in his last press conference that his serve got him through that struggle versus Denis. Meanwhile, Matteo Berrettini had a bit of a rocky start to his Australian Open campaign, scraping by America's Nakashima and Kozlov in 4. The Italian stepped up his game when needed though, withstanding a late comeback from 18-year-old Carlos Alcaraz to win a 4-hour 5-set battle. His round of 16 match was much more straightforward, beating Pablo Carreño Busta in straight sets. However, the 7th seed once again had to battle through his opponent's 2-sets-to-love recovery, ultimately outlasting a strong Gael Monfils. There have been some parallels between Berrettini and Rafa's play in Melbourne thus far. The Italian has also allowed in his serve to both get himself relatively easy holds and edge out in front when the scoreline's a bit tighter. As always, the forehand has been big for Berrettini, often running around the backhand to clobber the inside-out forehand, and with great success. Matteo's also done well to come in behind that shot and finish at net. Looking at their match from the US Open 2 years ago, it was actually much closer than what the scoreline entailed, especially in the first half. Berrettini started strong and was actually the better player for much of the opening set. He was strong on serve, often going wide before immediately dictating with the forehand. Berrettini also took advantage of Nadal's deep court positioning, often drop-shotting him and hitting angled shots to get him out of his comfort zone. Matteo had opportunities to grab the opening set in the tiebreaker, but Nadal's defense was fully activated, extracting crucial errors from the Italian's racket. That missed opportunity did deflate Berrettini a bit and only aided Nadal, who got more returns in play and with good depth to make life more difficult for his opponent on serve. Rafa also exploited Berrettini's inferior movement and court coverage to gain a greater advantage too. For Rafa to repeat this result tonight, he needs to look to have more forehand to backhand exchanges. We've established that Berrettini's backhand is his weaker wing, as it tends to land shorter in long rallies. This gives Nadal the opportunity to take control of the rallies like Alcaraz did. The Italian also doesn't move as well to that side when on the defensive, so I definitely try to go solid to the forehand for a minute before attacking his backhand. The next point for Nadal is to maintain an aggressive pattern of play from the early stages. He did a much better job at this versus Shapovalov, but Nadal still has tendencies to be a bit more passive in the early stages of some matches, which allows his opponents to step up and dictate. Berrettini started very strong in his past few matches, so Nadal needs to match that level if he wants to avoid an early deficit. Related to this point is continuing to take the net whenever possible. I don't need to go into depth about this, but basically the Spaniard has had a lot of success at the net this event, and it's going to be an area that he's going to rely on to save his legs and stamina if things do go deep. Then lastly, Nadal must continue his stellar serving here against Berrettini because the more drama-free holds, the better. Rafa has done well to really go up and after the serve in Melbourne, and against Berrettini, I want him to do that, but also vary the spins to give him different looks. Shapovalov caught on a bit to Rafa's patterns in their match, so he wants to avoid that here too. Also, I think Berrettini handles the harder, flatter serves better than the ones that spin away or into his body. Now for Berrettini to get the W, he needs to apply the pressure pressure from the beginning like he's done in the past few rounds. This pressure needs to remain constant because like we saw with Alcaraz and Monfils, he let his foot off the gas a bit in those third and fourth sets, which almost got himself into trouble. Next, I want Matteo to serve smart to set himself up for that big forehand. We all know Berrettini is going to immediately be looking for that shot after hitting the serve, so the Italian will make this goal more attainable by strategically serving at certain spots to get it. I like to see more T serves on both sides actually, especially on the ad. Not only would this get him more forehands, but it would distract weaker or missed returns from Nadal, as we saw versus Shapovalov. The third key for Berrettini is to look for more opportunities to move forward. He's done a really good job at net this tournament, and I think he could be more successful against Rafa if he approaches with good intent. Berrettini's backhand down the line is a bit of an underrated shot in some sense because he hits it pretty well as it catches opponents off guard. I think taking that approach, especially to the Nadal backhand, would be a good play. Then the last key I have is to implement more drop shots. We saw how this was a good play against the Nadal in New York, and with the 6th seed coming off a grueling fit setter, Berrettini can win himself a lot of easy points hitting the dropper. Nadal will likely assume a deeper court positioning because of Berrettini's power and the slightly slower non-time conditions. Matteo should take advantage of this as it'll get Nadal out of his comfort zone, keep him honest, and tire him out more. So for my final match prediction, I have Berrettini advancing in 5. This is a tough call because Nadal has been playing very well throughout this event. The physical aspect could be a slight factor, although he's had an extra day of rest. Plus, it'll be played at night, so the heat won't be a big worry. However, the nighttime also means that the Nadal shots won't have that same bounce and heaviness, which favors Berrettini because he won't have to make as many adjustments as Shapo did. Matteo also has the advantage of playing his last 2 matches at night too, so he'll be more accustomed to the conditions. Also, keep in mind that Nadal's last few losses here at the Australian Open have been at night. As far as the game style goes, I know a lot of people will feel that this matchup favors Nadal heavily, but Berrettini is a much different player than what we saw in New York. The most significant difference to me is his movement and defensive skills, meaning Nadal won't be finishing points as easy. The biggest edge for Rafa though is his experience at playing in these pressure moments. He's never defeated a member of the Big Three, and we saw 2 years ago that Berrettini at times just looked a bit unsure of himself and didn't know how to match Nadal's intensity. This time around though is different, and with the Wimbledon final and these big wins under his belt from Melbourne, I think he has everything he needs to get the job done. Moving on to the second semi, unlike our first semi-finalist, Steph and Daniil have a pretty extensive history. The pair played twice in slams, Medvedev dominating the Greek in this very stage last year in Melbourne. However, Tsitsipas did get revenge at Roland Garros, taking it in 3 as well. Now Stefanos was a bit of a question mark before Melbourne as he was still recovering from a late 2021 elbow surgery. I feel like because of this, he's been more under the radar here. Steph has definitely improved throughout the fortnight as he was tested early on by unseeded Baez and Pair before digging himself out of trouble versus Taylor Fritz. Tsitsipas earned his best and most comprehensive win over Jannik Sinner in the quarters. In the 4th round fight with Taylor, Stefanos looked like he was the inferior player throughout the early part of the match, being pushed all around by the American. The Greekman showcased his supreme athleticism though to get more forehand looks to change the dynamics of the entire match. He continued this more purposeful way of playing and demonstrated incredible footwork to absolutely dominate Sinner from the ground. The returns to serve have been solid for Steph this fortnight, making 73% of them in play. Tsitsipas' serving was the saving grace too, as he faced 0 break points in that quarterfinal match. Daniil's path wasn't as easy as he first had to get by an early test in Kyrgios before surviving in 4 versus Cressy. However, the biggest challenge came in the quarters, where he saved a match point before beating Felix Auger-Aliassime in a 5-set epic. Medvedev admitted that he didn't play his best tennis against Felix, but much of that was due to the Canadian playing truly unbelievable tennis. Aliassime served phenomenally and backed it up with countless penetrating groundies, which got the Russian scrambling all around the court. Medvedev was honestly outplayed for 70% of the match and didn't really change too much about his game. He was just mentally on another level, playing the big points much better. Gael Monfils and Denis Shapovalov managed to fight back from 2 sets to love down, but faded away a bit in the decider. Medvedev only got stronger in the latter stages, upping the pace while saving a plethora of breakpoints in the 5th to come out alive. Quickly going over the match keys, first starting with Steph, he must obviously continue that strong serving like we saw versus Sinner if he wants to be successful. Last year in Melbourne, he struggled far too much on serve, and while Medvedev is a much better returner than Jannik, he'll need to avoid those lengthier service games. Next, he needs to maintain that aggression with the forehand and look to come in, which is another thing he did well versus center, but something he didn't excel at versus Daniil in Australia back in 2021. Tsitsipas should also implement more slices and drop shots. The fourth seed hit a lot more slice backhands to Medvedev in Paris, which prevented him from doing as much damage from that backhand wing. Then, while the drop shot was more effective on clay, it still removes Daniil from the comfort of his baseline and works his legs more. Then lastly, I just want to say be alert on big points and play them well, because like we saw with Felix, Medvedev will take any little opportunity. Focusing on Daniil, I want to see him continue to go big on serve, because that got him a lot of comfortable holds last year versus Steph in this round. Then after the serve, I tell Medvedev to be aware of the big return up the middle from Tsitsipas, because not only did the Greekman hit that shot well in Paris, Felix was successful too, so Steph probably picked up on that. I also want Daniil to step in closer to the baseline and be more aggressive, mainly for stamina's sake, because I'm not so sure if he can withstand another 4 hours of retrieving from so deep. Then lastly, Medvedev should target the Tsitsipas backhand aggressively and with strong intent, like Fritz did. The Russian did a great job of this last year, and it got Steph assuming an even more defensive position. For my final match prediction, I have Stefanos advancing in 4 tight sets. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with that choice because Medvedev dominated the head-to-head and dominated their semifinal encounter from last year. Now for one, as we saw in Paris, Steph is starting to get a better feel for beating Daniil. I also think he'll take notes from how Felix was able to play his aggressive brand of tennis to nearly take out the second seed. Medvedev defended and counterpunched exceptionally well last year, but I don't think that he'll be as effective because for one, he has less in the tank for this one, coming off that exhaustive 5th setter. In 2021, Tsitsipas had the marathon quarterfinal match, coming back from 2 sets to love against Nadal. He definitely seemed to be laboring a bit in that semifinal, which is why it was so one-sided. Medvedev just worked him like a rag doll, and I just don't see that happening here. I do believe in the strong possibility of Daniil coming back even stronger and playing better tennis after surviving such a scare. However, with the way that Steph's playing at the moment, Daniil needs to be pretty much 100% physically to win, and I just don't think that a day's rest is enough recovery time for him here. That's it for this video, and let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with me having Berrettini and Tsitsipas advance. Also, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post the women's final preview. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.